about at that hour, so we'll get started and welcome everyone in. Welcome. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Brant Handling, Managing Director of Resource Options International, and we do retained executive search for the mighty middle market. And we're very, very happy to invite you here today for you to join us for our continuing series of building competencies for the mighty middle market. And it's going to be a really great session. We've got Dr. Kaihan Krippendorf, who's going to be talking about disruptive strategies to really outthink the competition. And Kaihan and I met about 3 or 4 months ago through a mutual acquaintance. I've got some great things to share with regards to how companies can really turn up the heat as it relates to their revenue growth. And we'll get started in a few minutes as other folks come in. As you do arrive, please just say hello, let us know that you're signed in and that we've got you here. So we'll have some time for Q&A. Kaihan is going to be probably giving about a 25-35 minute presentation, give you an overview of the outthinking process, and then we'll get a chance to talk a little bit about what he has to say beyond that. So great. Horst, welcome. Good to see you here. Coming in from Berlin, I think, today. Wonderful. Okay, great. So welcome, everyone. And I think what I'll do, Kaihan, is why don't we just go ahead and get started. I'll turn it over to you if you want to say a few words and then go right into your presentation. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Dr. Kaihan Krippendorf. Kaihan, over to you.
Great. Well, it's great to be here, Brant. Thanks for having me, and welcome everyone. I'm really looking forward to sharing this methodology with you. And Brant has really worked me hard to take what I usually do in about a day and really put it into an action-packed 30-35 minutes and deliver something that you can immediately apply and hopefully use to grow your business faster and grow your profitability. So, just very glad to be here. Thank you.
Great to have you.
Great. I'll go into start sharing my presentation now, right?
There you go. Off to you.
All right. Great. So what I pulled together for everyone here is a methodology. I'll just tell you a little bit about Outthinker and a little background on me and why this process I think works well. So I used to work at McKinsey, and in 2004 I left and I started my own firm. And I started developing this methodology based off of the first book that I wrote, and I basically facilitated lots and lots of strategy sessions. And what I found is that for various reasons, a team of people, leadership team, they can start thinking innovatively about their business, but towards the end of the conversation, someone will say something like, well, that won't work because of A, B, and C. And they kind of kill off the really disruptive, innovative ideas. And I looked to understand why that is. And what I've been doing really for the last 15 years is studying the patterns of communication that lead to disruptive ideas. And over the years, through my firm, Outthinker, which we formed about 5 years ago, we have worked now with a great number of companies, from big companies like Microsoft and ESPN and Chubb and Kraft and Macmillan and Citibank to...
Kaihan, I'm not seeing your PowerPoint, so I don't know if we've got that up. You might want to broadcast on that.
Great, okay.
The full screen there.
Cool, give me a second. So, are you seeing it now?
We're seeing individuals, but not the full screen.
Got it. Okay. How about? So right now you're seeing. Sorry, just tell me what you're seeing, because
yeah, it's a little better. We're seeing just the one screen, but we're still seeing the scroll on the left side. So.
I gotcha. Yeah, I think what we have is we have it set up so that it is in. Is that better?
That's black now. So Kyle, maybe can you jump on here and help us out?
I could just also share it this way without putting it in a presentation mode. I think it's in a presentation mode, so it's I think
You can just share it that way. That'd be
share
great.
this way. Yeah, she'll share this way. So we've worked with a whole number of companies, and you can see some of some of the names, large companies. But what we're really passionate about and where we think we can have the biggest impact are mid-market, aggressive growth-seeking mid-market companies, and that's one reason I'm so excited to be here. And overall, the process works. We've just been refining and synthesizing it, simplifying it, and generally, if you apply the process to your business, you experience about a little over 2 times revenue growth rate increase. So, we work with from a leading software firm. Their question was, how do we reach $1 billion in 3 years? And after doing the process, they reached $1 billion in 2 years. If we go down here, private equity portfolio company, how do we trigger growth in a commodity market? And we work with them, and they came out with 10 high potential opportunities to open new revenue, and now they're executing them. A mid-sized accounting firm looking at several years of flat growth. I'm going to talk more about them in a little bit, how specifically they did that, and now they're growing at 30% a year. This is not a secret. This is not rocket science. It's just that I've spent, and my team has spent, a lot of time just focusing on this one question: how do you unlock disruptive growth? And so I'm going to walk you through the process. But before I do that, I just want to propose to you that your ability to unlock disruptive growth has really nothing to do with your technology or unique capabilities. It has more to do with the concepts that you apply to your business. In 1968, Dick Fosbury jumped over the high bar backward. He won the Olympics. It took the competition 8 years to copy him. But if we look at this picture, what is shocking to me is that it begs the question: why didn't anyone do this 4 years before him, or 8 years before, or 12 years before? There's nothing that newly makes this way of competing possible. What's different is that someone applied a different concept to the game. And it was not until that concept was named and adopted, it was called the Fosbury flop, not until it was named did other people start adopting this concept. And you see the pattern of growth of any disruptive company. Uber, there's no reason someone didn't do Uber 5 years before Uber did Uber. There's no reason why somebody didn't launch Airbnb 5 years before Airbnb. What is new is a concept. So what we like to do is study the concepts that winning companies apply and turn those into tools to help you grow your business more quickly. So what we have is this a little bit of a complicated framework here, and we're going to walk through the right-hand side of it. But this is our overall strategic framework, and I'll work with Brant to make sure that you get a copy of this presentation as well. So the overall framework is you need to imagine the future. You need to then dissect what your issues are, expand your options, analyze and choose those options. This is the strategy phase. And then you then implement. You align your organization behind the strategy, you execute the strategy, then you monitor how well you're executing the strategy, evaluate your performance, and then begin the process again whenever you're off track. So it's a cycle. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk through these four on the right. I'm going to spend most of the time on expand. So to produce disruptive growth, you first have to want disruptive growth. If you are not clear on what you want and have not thought about what the future looks like, then you're going to produce a strategy that produces something that you don't want. So it starts with imagining the future, defining the trends, defining your long-term strategic goals, your near-term strategic goals. There are a whole bunch of terms and methods that you may know. You may know the term BHAG or vision or purpose or mission or scenarios or trends. Whatever you call it is fine. You can use whatever language you like, but all of that fits in this idea of we must first step out into the future and define what we want. And I'm just going to show you a hidden example from a client just to give you a sense of what you're looking to produce. So get your team together, spend a half day if you need to, 3 days if you need to, and say, what is our long-term vision? What's our long-term goals? In this case, this company said, we want to have this much in sales with these many stores across the world. We want to become the first global lifestyle brand in their category, be a global brand for the region, become known as a loved brand, eradicate preventable visually impaired blindness globally. So they have a social purpose here as well. In order to achieve this in 2030, what has to be true in 2021? Well, we have to have this much in revenue and this many stores. We have to become a lifestyle brand, a loved brand, become the most profitable retailer in our category. So you have this list. You become clear on where you're going and therefore what must be true in the near term. So I'm just going to assume that you have done that. And if you haven't done that, get your team together and spend a half day if you need to really discussing what do we want in the long term and therefore what must be true in the near term. Then you look at your issues, and the idea is that there are lots of issues that any business faces regardless of where you are in your development cycle, but there are some issues that matter more than others. You are looking for the most important strategic issues. You're looking for the issues that if you solve those, all of the other issues become easy or irrelevant. And they aren't usually the issues that you first think they are. So I'll give you two slides here. One is a hidden example from another client, and they're looking to produce over the long term $320 million in revenue impact. And they thought that the real opportunity was around e-commerce. But when you actually looked at what e-commerce could do for them and compared it to things like entering a particular new market, defining what our brand promise is, accelerating store rollout, this is actually the same client as I showed earlier just to show some consistency, you can see that these four issues are worth much more than the other issues. So what you want to do is you want to identify what are the issues that matter. And we're going to give you an offer at the end of this webinar. There's a diagnostic that we've developed that asks you a bunch of questions and will help you make an informed guess as to what are the strategic issues that are most important for your strategy to offer. So now you've imagined what you want, you've identified the issues, then comes the expand phase. And this is where you use a playbook to generate hypotheses and conduct a bunch of ideation sessions to generate lots of ideas. The fundamental question here in this phase is, how do great strategists see strategic options that others don't see? Now, Alexandra Kostanuk is the reigning women's world chess champion, and we can learn a lot about her because she can line up a whole town and play chess with them, and in each time she goes to the board, she can see the winning move. Now, if she could play your game of growing your business as well as she plays chess, she would certainly see things that you couldn't see. So how does she do that? There's research by academics who study chess players, and they say the reason she can see the winning move is that she comes at the game with more patterns. I call these things strategic narratives. Master chess players recognize twice as many patterns as experts. Grandmasters recognize 10 times as many. So in this phase of your strategizing, what you want to really look at is what are the strategic narratives that you're using to generate these ideas. And I won't go into my research. My first two books are kind of deep into this methodology. I basically look at companies and I say, let's find pairs of companies. Let's find one company that is growing really fast, has very high profit margins, and is generating a lot of value for their shareholders. And let's compare them to another company that's in the same industry, approximately the same size, but that is underperforming in these. So we've got winners and losers. And then we take stacks of winners and stacks of losers, these pairs, and we say, what are the strategies that the winning companies are citing more often than their losing peers, which allows us to actually measure what is the winning playbook. And so here's just a visual of the research. We work from a methodology of that there are 36 fundamental patterns. And so we take companies and we analyze how they describe their strategies. And so what I want to share with you now are 3 narratives of these 36 narratives that are particularly important and valuable for you to apply to your business. We are entering a very different phase of competition. A digital transformation, acceleration, new asset-light business models are thrusting us into a very different form of competition, and this is affecting big companies and small companies, everything from startups to multi-billion-dollar companies. And there are 3 narratives that I believe you need to start applying today if you are going to win, if you're going to jump over the high bar backward while everyone else is going over forward. The first is these winning companies talk more about moving early to the next battleground. It's a very simple narrative. It just says, I'm not going to compete for today. I'm going to step into the future and compete for tomorrow. Wayne Gretzky says, skate to where the puck is going, not where the puck is. Is that narrative. But if you look at how these innovators talk about using this narrative, they don't talk about getting ahead of a trend. Peter Thiel, one of the PayPal founders, he says, if you're after a trend that other people are after, you already are too late. What you need to do is not get on front of trends that people are talking about. You need to identify where the system is going and how the system will evolve. I got a chance to interview Elon Musk a year after he launched SpaceX, and I asked him, so what happened? You launched PayPal, you sold PayPal, you netted $150 million for yourself, and you decided to invest all of that money on building rocket ships. Why did you do that? And he said, without blinking, I just think a world in which anyone can shoot stuff into space is more exciting than one in which only the government can. Now, that's a fairly risky premise to bet your company's wealth on, right? But what he was saying is the system will evolve. This was his logic when I poked him on it. He said, look, humans are destined to explore outer space. We can't explore outer space because NASA has a monopoly on the part of the space program that is building and launching vehicles, and that makes it too expensive to build and launch a vehicle. Eventually, the system will evolve, and NASA will privatize that part of the program. And I'm going to build that company that's perfectly tailored to take that job off their hands. I don't know if it's going to happen in 5 years or 10 years, but I am going to be there at the next battleground. So you want to start thinking like that. Or I was visiting my mom in Bangladesh, and I got to meet this guy, Kamal Kadir, MIT trained engineer, becomes entrepreneur. He goes back home. He sees a man selling fish. This man has cash in one hand and a phone in the other hand. And Kamal thinks, this doesn't make sense. If he has cash, he has a phone, he shouldn't have cash. He should be using a mobile P2P payment system, as most people in Nigeria and Kenya do. In Nigeria and Kenya, 90% of adults transact using mobile phones. So he said, I'm going to build this system, but the system will evolve. Right now, the system is designed so that the phone company becomes a bank because they own the cash. And since they're not regulated like a bank, that creates social issues. In the future, there will be a bank in the middle, and I'm going to design that system. He designs that system. He launches Bcash. 3 years later, there are 13 million fishermen, farmers, small business owners using his platform. It is now the largest mobile P2P payments platform in the developing world. So as you are strategizing with your team, you want to ask the question, where is the next battleground? And what can we do now to move there early? That's the first narrative. The second narrative, to generate these disruptive ideas, is to coordinate the uncoordinated. The old paradigm was that you created power by controlling things. The emerging strategy is you create power by coordinating them, even if you can't control them. Think about that power comes from coordination. This is why birds fly in flocks, why fish swim in schools, why animals travel in herds. They create power and safety by coordinating themselves. Now, many of the innovations that we admire today, like Uber and Airbnb and OpenTable and crowdfunding platforms like Kickstarter, they are simply examples of the fact that we can coordinate things today that before we couldn't coordinate. So you want to get ahead of this. This is going to happen in your business, in your industry. A competitor is going to do it if you don't do it first. One of our clients is a publisher, and they were worried about self-published authors who would write a book, couldn't get a book deal. They would self-publish, they were successful, and then the client would go to them and say, we'd like to publish your next book. But of course then the author said, well, I don't need you anymore. I've got 1 million Facebook fans, and I can just print a PDF, put it on Amazon, I can keep all the money of myself. Why would I publish with you? And this was happening with increasing frequency. So the client was worried they were going to get disrupted. So they said, how could we coordinate would-be self-published authors? That idea led to Swoon Reads. And the way Swoon Reads works is authors submit a manuscript, and then the community starts interacting with them and giving them feedback on their manuscript. Then they rate them according to heat and tears and laughs and thrills, and it becomes a kind of Dancing with the Stars competition. The winner gets, of course, a publishing contract. So what they've done is they've taken what could have been a disruptive, fatal threat, and they've coordinated it. What you want to do is you want to ask yourself, how could we coordinate the uncoordinated? What is uncoordinated that we would like to coordinate? And generate from that as many ideas as you can for growing your business. The third narrative that I wanted to share here is called Force a Two-Front Battle. What we notice today is that winning companies, they are willing to stretch outside of their industries, but they don't fundamentally do that by changing their business model. They don't necessarily acquire new businesses. They don't set up new operations. Think about Google, for example, right? Google is in driverless cars, they're in the connected home, they're in wind farms, they compete with everyone, but their core business model, which is selling advertising, is pretty much the same. They're willing to stretch without changing their business model. Take a look at Amazon. We might think of Amazon as an online retailer, but they don't view themselves as an online retailer. So when they were looking for opportunities to expand, they said, what are we good at? We're not just an online retailer. What we're good at, what defines us, is that we're good at managing technology. We manage servers, we track payments, we track packages, we manage content, we keep websites up. Why don't we package all of that up and offer it as a service to small businesses? Now, they launched Amazon Web Services. They attacked cloud providers. Think of VMware and Microsoft, software companies. Now, these software companies did not think that they were going to get attacked by a retailer. And they are on a two-front battle now because Microsoft has to keep competing against software companies, but now also has to compete on another front against this retailer. I don't know if you know this, but this business for Amazon, it now generates $10 billion in revenue for them. And this is a business that would not have even been considered had they defined themselves as an online retailer. So you really want to think about, how do you define yourself? It does not necessarily mean that you need to expand into your industry. You can stay in your industry, but by competing as someone who's different, you can still create this two-battlefront effect. One of our clients is a mid-market accounting firm. I mentioned them to them earlier. They're growing. They had 3 years of very little to no growth, and they were worried about that they've reached a ceiling. So we applied this methodology with them. They came up with 40 or 50 or 60 different growth ideas. But what we discovered is there was just one subtle shift that they could make that would dramatically transform their growth rate. What they said is, what are we good at? What if we're not a traditional CPA firm that's good at running accounting projects? What we're really good at is building leaders, accounting leaders, because we recruit these young accountants, we train them, and we develop them and prepare them for a career as a CFO. What if that's the business we were in? When they realized that that was the business they were in, they changed how they operated. They changed how they deployed and how they priced. They developed a new training program and a new career trajectory. Just by making that shift, they went from 0% growth to 30% of growth. They've been producing 30% growth over the last 3 years, and they are now one of the top 50 largest CPA firms in the country. So what these questions will do, these patterns will generate lots of potential ideas. You should sit with your team after you've imagined, after you've dissected, and for each of these, try to generate 10 or 15 ideas. Move early to the next battleground. What can we do now to do that? What can we coordinate that is uncoordinated? And how can we take what we're great at, as not defined by our industry, and use that to force a two-front battle? If you apply this, that should generate 30, 50 ideas for you. And that brings you through the expand phase. And the beautiful thing about this is your competitors, they're going to be coming at you with 10 or 15 ideas. They get lazy. They stop searching. And you keep searching. You go at them with 50, 60 ideas. You have a better chance of seeing the disruptive move. Now, the last phase of this analyze, it addresses the fact that even if you are able, as a management team, to generate lots of ideas, it is very likely that what will happen next is you and your team will kill off the really disruptive ideas. Because the disruptive ideas always look impossible. What makes them disruptive is that they're something that your competitors will say, that's crazy, that won't work, that's never been done before. That's what makes them potentially disruptive. But think about it. Since your team lives in the same belief structure as your competitor, your team will also say, that's crazy. How do we overcome this? It's actually surprisingly easy. We want to take a tip from Albert Einstein, who said, it's not that I'm so smart, it's just that I stay with problems longer than others. What we're going to do is we're going to take your 50 ideas and sort them into 4 different types of ideas, and then sit with the seemingly crazy ideas. For each of the ideas, you're going to ask, is this easy or difficult to execute? Easy ideas, we can move quickly. We can implement them inexpensively. We have the capabilities. Impact is, how far will this get me towards my goal? If your goal is revenue, how much revenue does this get me? If your goal is profit growth, how much profit growth does it get me? How much market share? How much customer satisfaction? How many employees? Whatever your dream is, you put a number on it and you measure this idea's potential to get you to your dream, right? And then you'll end up with 4 different types of ideas. You're going to end up with some waste of time. These are difficult, low-impact ideas. I promise you that if you do this and you include on your list things that your team is currently executing and investing time in, that you are likely to find that you are wasting time on waste of time. And I don't mean that to be condescending at all. I do it. We all do it. Every company that I work with, when they look at this, they realize that there are things that they're doing that are waste of time. What are we going to do with those wastes of time? We're going to stop doing them. And we're going to take the energy and resources from that to fuel more productive strategies. You're going to end up with some tactics. They're easy but low impact. What are you going to do with tactics? We're not going to make a big deal of them, but we're just going to put them down on a list, put them on a to-do list, and we're just going to do them. We're going to execute them. Assign them to someone, put them on an operating plan. You'll end up with some winning moves that are easy but high impact. Those are the ones we're looking for. But at Outthinker, we find that the 4th option idea, the idea that others won't expect or see, first appears in the 4th quadrant. It appears as a crazy idea. And what most companies do with crazy ideas is they put them on the back burner. They don't do them, right? Because they cost too much. They take too long, they require capabilities we don't have. What innovative companies do is they sit with those ideas and they work on them. They figure out, could I partner with someone to reduce the time to market? Could I outsource something to reduce costs? Could I get other funding sources to fuel this idea? And that is what disrupts your market and your competitors, because your competitors don't expect this crazy idea. I like to think of it like this. There's a great quote by Gandhi who said, "First they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win." What he's saying is, if you want to disrupt your competition, you have to do things that your competitors will ignore and laugh at. And it's these crazy ideas that they're going to ignore and laugh at. So at the end of the day, you'll look at these ideas and you'll say, okay, these wastes of time, let's take them off of our list. These are things that we are going to avoid at all costs. Warren Buffett says you should write your priorities, circle your top 5 priorities, and everything else goes on your avoid at all cost list. Strategies about what you don't do. So now you're defining things that we're not going to do. Tactics, you're just going to sort through them and do them. And then you end up with a set of winning moves that you're going to pursue, and at least one, preferably more, crazy ideas. Now, depending on the amount of time and resources you have, you then collect these and you turn them into a strategy. We like to present strategies in this way, that there are 3 horizons to your strategy. You have certain things that you're going to do to defend your core business, right? That might be improvements to your core product, price increases, new marketing strategies, things that are going to defend and grow your core. You're going to have a few new things that you're going to build on top of your core. These might be new types of customers to pursue, new products to pursue, new pricing strategies, new marketing methods. And then in these crazy ideas go over here in this creating options. These are things you don't know yet if they're going to work. But if you don't do something with them now, what will happen is competitors will do them, and you will be disruptive. Jeff Bezos, CEO of Amazon, said, if you have a 10% chance of 100 times payout, you got to take that bet every time. But you got to know you're going to lose 9 times out of 10. Now, companies like Amazon, they can afford to make lots and lots of bets. Smaller companies can't so much, right? So the key there is to reduce the cost of pursuing the idea. And a lot of our clients like this idea of the 5-5-5 experiment. So you take these crazy ideas and you design an experiment that you can conduct with 5 people over 5 weeks, 1 or 2 days a week, and $5,000. You commit to that. You run an experiment and seek to answer the question, is this an idea that is worth pursuing? This becomes your strategy. This becomes the clarity. And you execute it, you align to it, you monitor it, and then you adjust as you need to. And that takes us through these 5 phases. Imagine, dissect, expand, analyze. And then you feed into the rest, the strategies. So that is what, I've got tons more to share with you, but that is what I thought would be most valuable to share with you today.
Excellent.
We have an offer we can share with you either now or later.
Excellent, great. Well, let's go to some questions. I know that we've got a few that have come in beforehand, and Kaihan, if you want to click over to your video, it'd be great to see you, and we'll address these questions. We've got a number of them that came in beforehand, so let me read through those. I know we've got some coming into the chat box as well, so as they come in, we'll read them. But the first one is from Jeff. Jeff says, how can you spend time on planning disruptive strategies while trying to run the business you've already got?
Yeah, this is a problem that every business has, regardless of the size. How do you perform while you transform? How do you produce while you're growing? And I think that 3 horizon framework really helps with it. You're going to spend maybe 70 or 80% of your time on defending and growing your core, but you need to make some time to expand. So I think that setting aside, just very practically, if you set aside half an hour a week or 2 hours a month to have a strategy conversation with your team, conference call or webinar, whatever that is, and say, we're only going to talk about Horizon 2 and Horizon 3 ideas here, then you create the time to continually create disruptive ideas.
Got it. Good stuff. Great. And Bernadette asks, what are the greatest barriers to rapid growth?
The main barriers to rapid growth, is that what you asked?
Yes, exactly. What are the main or the greatest barriers to rapid growth that you see?
Yeah. Well, I'm really interested in what the management team can do, because there are barriers on, such as misunderstanding the market, making the wrong bets, concentrating your bets too much. But for this webinar, what I would really say is the main thing is that if you don't have a pipeline of disruptive ideas, your growth will eventually peter out because your competitors will catch up. So if you can continually have these imagine, dissect, expand, analyze conversation, fill your pipeline with disruptive ideas, every quarter be running 5 experiments, then you can guarantee, or at least give you the greatest chance of maintaining disruptive, continued, sustained growth.
Good. Cool. Kaihan, Gary asks, what's the essence of a great strategy and a great strategic plan in your view?
Yeah, I think a strategy, two things, right? It has to be a good enough strategy. It's got to be a strategy that fits the market, that you understand the trends and you understand the competition, you understand what the opportunities. So it has to be a good enough strategy. But really, I think the big value of having a strategy is clarity. When you know as a team where you want to go and what you must focus on to get there, then you have a good strategy. It's almost like it doesn't matter, to some extent, it doesn't matter if the strategy is right or not, as long as you guys understand and can live and are acting based on the strategy, then you've got a better chance in your competition of winning.
Got it. Good. Michael has asked, what happens when infrastructure pressures get in the way, really, I guess, in terms of chasing big growth opportunities? What do you do about that?
Well, yeah. So in the after you come up with the strategic ideas, when you get into alignment, you got to look at your infrastructure, your human capital, your capital. You got to look at your KPIs. You got to look at a bunch of stuff to see if you have what it takes to execute the strategy. If the strategy requires resources or time that you're not able to or willing to commit, then it's not a good strategy for you. So infrastructure is one of at least 8 things that you should look at. With regard to infrastructure, really there's 2 different things. So, two things. One is, the obvious is, well, we don't have the infrastructure to implement the strategy. But there are very interesting creative ways to get the infrastructure and capability at a low cost. There can be outsourcing opportunities, there can be partnerships, there can be joint ventures, there can be, because so many things are moving from owned to cloud, you can start renting infrastructure. You can go to Alibaba and you can turn on manufacturing capability that before you'd have to invest millions to build a factory for. So I wouldn't let infrastructure stop you immediately, but then go back and find 10 ways that you could remove infrastructure as a barrier.
Great, cool. Jeremy has a comment. He says he really likes the idea of the 5 by 5 by 5 experiment to create some momentum and work within organizational tolerance to prepare a company to the next level. Maybe you can just talk a little bit more about some of the 5 by 5 by 5 examples that you've done with some of your clients.
Yeah, definitely. And I have to say that concept is not my concept. If you look up a book called The Innovator's Hypothesis, or work by the author Michael Schrage, he's an MIT guy. He developed this concept. Just a lot of our clients have started adopting it. There's also a great book by a group of, actually I have it here, it's right over here, by a group of Google venture guys called Sprint, and it's basically how to run a 5x5 experiment in 5 days rather than 5 weeks. But there are lots of great examples of it. The first Apple mouse, for example, they kind of stole the technology or borrowed the technology from Xerox. But the technology was way too expensive for a consumer product because it required lasers. And so what they did was they said, let me create a mouse at a low cost that we can put in people's hands and experience them using it. And so they went to a drugstore and they got one of those roll-on deodorants, and they took the ball out of that and they used that as their first mouse. So it's that kind of looking for creative ways to reduce the cost of producing something that people can play with. So for our clients, usually what that means is you start off, if it's a physical space, you take an existing space, you put in furniture, you get 5 customers in and get them to interact with the physical space to see how they react. If it's maybe a web page, you do a PowerPoint mock-up of that web page. You get 5 clients to come in for half an hour each. You have them look at this web page and give you feedback on it. You really only need feedback from 5 good prospective clients to get enough feedback. So find creative ways to reduce the cost of producing the first thing, and then focus in on your core customer so that you can really get good insights from just 5 people. Other questions or comments? Please, can you talk about an example of a failed disruptive strategy? Was thought to be disruptive but wasn't in the end, and why it failed? That's a great one. I think that Vonage is a good example, and TiVo is a good example. This is something you have to watch out, as you disrupt. So let's just take the example of TiVo. Okay, so TiVo introduces the DVR. It wasn't called a DVR at the time, and they convince people to start plugging these machines into their TVs and recording the program so they can watch them later. And the chairman of the regulatory board that regulates I think it's I forget who it is, but that regulates media, he called it God's machine. This was going to change the world, right? So they invest a lot of money in getting people to embrace this idea of the DVR. What happens? Cable companies say, this is great, I'm going to do it too. And the beautiful thing about a cable company is they only have to put the hard drive of the DVR in an existing box, an existing cable box, and they can give it away for free, because they know that if you put a DVR in your cable box, you're going to upgrade to a higher level of service. So now TiVo introduces this category, and the idea is that if you introduce a category, you're going to own the category, like Gatorade or like Red Bull. But that's not always true. They introduced the category, and then cable companies took it away from them. Vonage did the same thing with voice over IP. They disrupted, and then cable companies took it away from them. What you want to look at when you're disrupting is 3 things. The larger competitors that you are going to attract the attention of, what can you do to slow down the time they take to capture their attention? I've got a few examples of that. Secondly, do they have one of three strategic advantages? Number 1, do they have economies of scale that you don't have? Do they have customer captivity or customer loyalty that you don't have? And do they have preferential access to resources that you don't have? Like, do they own the diamond mines? So if you see yourself in a situation where you're competing against large competitors, and you see that they are going to, apply one of these 3 advantages to you, then you really want to watch out, because you may have a disruptive strategy, but it's likely to be one that other people are going to come in and eat your lunch for.
Got it. Good stuff. Great. Can you hear me okay? I was having some technical problems, Cam, but I think I'm back on now again.
You're back on. I can hear you perfectly now.
Okay. Excellent. For some reason, the video is coming up when I'm talking. I'll see what I can do about that. But next question is also from Bernadette. What unique strategies are businesses using for growth?
Yeah, so I laid out three of them: move early to next battleground, coordinate the uncoordinated, force a two-front battle. There are two other strategies that we see disruptive companies like Uber and Airbnb and even Apple and Google and Amazon using. The next one's called Be Good, which is they recognize the social power of being of doing good. So they know that if you pursue a strategy in which employees and society and the world benefit by you winning, that you have a better chance of success. That's the fourth strategy. And the fifth strategy is creating something out of nothing. This is about adding a new piece to the board. We talked a little bit about this just now. They are more comfortable creating new categories that don't exist in order to prevent competitors from copying them. Like, for example, I don't know if you know this story, but there was a furniture salesman named Ingvar Kamprad, and he sold furniture at conferences. One day, his competitors ganged up on him, and they said, let's not let Ingvar rent a table at the next conference. And so what he did, he said, okay, I'm going to create something out of nothing. I'm going to create my own conference, right? And he rented a convention hall, set up tables, he sold furniture, and he said, I'm not going to let my competitors rent a table for me. And he made so much money from that conference that he did it again and again and again, and it became IKEA. IKEA is just a furniture conference that happens every day, and Ingvar owns all the tables. So the fifth one is, when you see yourself stop, don't look at the pieces on the board, create something out of nothing. Add a queen next to their king, you know? There are a couple other strategies that I found particularly useful for for mid-market, and I could talk about those as well if there aren't other questions.
Great. No, we got a couple more. I see you picked up horse question. I got disconnected there for a moment, but I'm back in. Amelia asks, and this is really referring to the people. One of the things you wanted to make sure you covered was building the right team for rapid deployment and effective execution. How do you do that?
Great. All right. So first of all, there are, if you end up getting my book, you'll see that there are 8 different dimensions on which to compete. And one of the most important ones now is people. You see companies that are thriving, they focus on making unique people decisions, adopting unique people policies. For example, Vistaprint, which is a disruptor in the printing business. If you look at their performance, they consistently grow faster and more profitable than any of their peers, with a combination of those two. They don't hire printing experts. They hire young technology marketers. Urban Outfitters, one of the most profitable, if you look at the long term, one of the most profitable and fastest growing clothing retailers. They don't hire from business schools. They hire from design schools. So the first point is making a unique choice about where you hire, what kind of person you hire, has this effect of building a team and a culture that is hard for people to copy. And then you want to envelop that unique type of person with 3 other things. You want to look at applying a unique incentive structure. Outback Steakhouse, for example, for many years was the fastest growing restaurant, in their category. What they do is they paid managers less than their competitors did, but they gave them a higher percentage of the success or profit of the store. And by introducing that unique incentive structure, they naturally attracted managers who were confident that they could have a bigger impact on the store, but they hired better managers, and that was a big part. So changing your incentive structure. Number 3, changing your values or having a unique culture. And then that means, like, look at your cultural values that you live. And if your cultural values are the customer's always right, we produce high quality products, and being authentic, right? That's great. But every company aspires to the same value, so that doesn't differentiate you. You really want to look at having cultural values that are unique to you and different from your competition. And then the 4th is your organizational structure, how you organize. We're seeing companies like Red Hat adopting an open model where people don't have roles. Zappos doing the same. In the military, you see General McChrystal breaking down the hierarchy into teams of teams. There are really interesting things that you can do in structure. So if you want to build a truly unique team, hire different people, adopt a different incentive structure, apply and develop different value norms, and explore different organizational structures.
Fantastic. Last question, unless there's more that are coming in, and we put one last call out because we are running out of time. Clay had a very good one, which is, what are the best questions to ask your people as you go through this kind of disruptive process?
Yeah, I think there are a whole bunch of questions, right? If you can look at each of those steps as a question, let me go through imagine, dissect, expand, analyze, and suggest what questions you should be asking. Under imagine, what we should be asking is, what is the most important strategic question that if we could answer it would propel us to our dream state, our dream ideal? What is the one most important question that if we answered it, it would make all the other questions go away? Under dissect, we have to say, what is the one issue that if we solved it, it would make all the other issues go away? Under expand, you actually have 4 questions, where we name 3 questions. Where is the next battleground? What can we coordinate? How can we force a 2-front battle? And under analyze, we want to ask, what is the idea that our competitors think is impossible? I think if you are asking those questions regularly, you're going to open up a flood of disruptive ideas.
Fantastic. Great. Well, listen, thank you once again, Kaihan. This has been fantastic. For all of you that have attended, we're going to get you a copy of the presentation that will be sent out, as well as a replay of this video. So by all means, please make sure it'll share within your organization and your team. Kaihan, I wanted you to pull up again your diagnostic offer and maybe talk a little bit about that we're offering all the webinar attendees today. Do you want to pull that up on your screen?
Yeah.
And we'll also load ROIs on as well. If those of you look on the right side of your screen, you'll get a chance to see kind of our free assessment, something that we do as well for all of our attendees at our specific webinars. And Kaihan, I'll turn it back over to you and let you get a chance to talk a little bit about your overview as well.
Yeah, so here's what our offer is to you. We can get you to rapidly identify what are the strategic opportunities to double your revenue growth by not going through a long consulting process, but we've developed a diagnostic. And if you go to www.outthinker.com/diagnostic, you'll be able to access a free diagnostic. It'll take about 20 minutes for you to complete. Then you're going to get a diagnostic. It's got a full report, the areas for you to focus on, how you compare to other competitive companies, etc. You can download that, you can use it, you can read it. You also, if you want to, can thereby get a 1-hour consultation by me or one of my growth strategists. We'll spend an hour going over the diagnostic with you and helping you reach clarity on what you can do now to reach strategic clarity and accelerate your revenue growth.
That's fantastic. Really appreciate that, Kaihan. And also, you'll see on the other side of the screen our ongoing free team assessment offered to you, as well as 2 members on your team. This includes 1 hour of consulting with each of those members, as well as an ROI coaching report, a psychographic, psychometric overview of you and some of your team members. Very important as well if you're evaluating your team and determining, really who is the right players and whether or not they are the right cultural fit for your organization. Kaihan, I want to thank you again for your time and effort, and really appreciate your participation today. And for all of those that you attended, there'll be a replay sent out, as well as sending along the presentation to each of you. Any parting words for us, Kaihan?
No, thanks. This is a lot, but you're going to have all the tools, and it is really easy. Just walk through the steps, ask the questions, use the tools, and you're going to be surprised at how easy it is to outthink your competition, because your competition is mostly too lazy to think about all of this, and you can do it.
Terrific. Once again, take advantage of these 3 offers and engagement, further engagement with Kaihan. Once again, thank you again, Kaihan, today. Great to talk to you, and thank you for this presentation.
Great. Thank you.
All the best. Bye now.